Good evening, everyone. I hope you're all doing well, and thanks for joining in with tonight's group analysis session. Really nice to see you all sharing your charts, sharing your outlooks on GBPJPY in particular. So what I'm going to do is pretty much go through again, like I did yesterday, a complete analysis from this blank chart and show you what my thoughts are, where price may be heading, where we might have some buying opportunities, where we might have some selling opportunities, and basically just talk you through exactly how I would dissect these charts. So first things first, I'll have a little zoom out and see what the overall picture is. And what we can see quite clearly is that since the 8th of March, GBPJPY has been in a clear uptrend, similar to yesterday's NZD/USD. The lows are becoming higher over time. The highs are also becoming higher over time, so obviously this is showing our uptrend. We can take the trend line tool from the top left on the trading view sidebar. We can try and connect these lows and see if we can have any form of channel or trend line in place. So we'll take it from this low here, take it to the next most significant low, which is there, and then link it up. And as we can see, this lines up pretty much pinpoint perfectly. First touch, second touch, third touch. So here's our trend line right here. Again, what we can do is extend this into the future. So if price continues to move like it has been moving, what we could continue to see is rejections from this trend line and price to move higher until eventually the trend line's broken, the trend changes and price moves in the opposite direction. Excuse me. The next thing we're going to look at is obviously levels of support and resistance to see if there's any kind of pivot points horizontally as opposed to diagonally. And first things first, we can see that we have a clear level of support right on this zone here. So we had our first touch, we had our second touch here. So we'll take the rectangle tool, we'll start at the first low, we'll link it up with the second low over here. So here's one level of support. What we can do is extend this into the future. So now we know if price does come back down into this region again, we could possibly be looking for buying opportunities. Now, what we're going to do is continue to find these zones within this kind of range that price is stuck in. Although overall price has been in an uptrend and climbing higher since the 22nd of March, so pretty much the last week or so, price has come to a standstill. It's pretty much moving up, down, up, down, up, down, and it hasn't really broken out of this kind of box range right here. But what we'll do is we'll see if we can spot any other kind of pivot points along the way, and what we can see right here, we have a bit of one right about here. So we'll take this low, we'll link it up with those lows there, and we can see that we have a bit of a support zone here. First touch, second touch, a bit choppy around this region, and then obviously coming into here again. So this isn't the most clear level of support because it's not as precise as what we've seen here. But again, we have had rejections from it. We've had a touch here, we've had a touch in a very similar price region here, and then obviously it's been a little bit choppy in and around here. Obviously it broke down to this second support floor, pushed back up, price popped back down into this one and then push back up. So we'll leave this in anyway just to give us sort of a rough idea of where price could be heading and what barriers are in the way. And now let's look to see if we can find some levels of resistance. So automatically I can see that we've had prices stalled here, prices stalled here, prices stalled here, and then again here and across here. So this could be another bit of a pivot point in the market. And by linking up our rectangle, we can see that in fact it is. So we've had our first level of resistance, we've had our second level of resistance, third touch and rejection. So here's obviously our resistance zone. Since price broke this zone and came back down from above, this zone then acted as a floor. Price pushed higher, came back down to the same zone, pushed higher until it then broke. And once price was underneath, this was then obviously acting as a ceiling once again and forced price back down lower. So what we'll do, in fact, we'll get rid of this just now to give us a bit more clarity. And we can see now that price, above all, apart from this kind of bit of movement here, is stuck within this sideways range, bouncing from this support floor to this kind of resistance ceiling. And obviously we have the ascending trend line cutting through. We also have something else to mention is the yellow 200 moving average. So for those of you who've watched the moving average video, you'll know that the moving average acts as a strong level of support and resistance when price is either above or below. So we can see here when the 200 moving average was above price, price came up into the 200 moving average, it acted as a ceiling, price rejected it. And then once price broke it, it acted as a floor. Once again, once price was above, it acted as a floor. And then more recently, price came down from above, acted as a floor, rejected, and then away it went. So we've got quite a few regions in fact, very close to where the current price is that we need to keep an eye on. So first things first, we have this ascending trend line, which we've seen rejections from in the past. So we could be looking for buys pretty shortly, actually, although I don't tend to trade past 9 p.m. at night because of the spreads and just because of the lower volatility and liquidity in the markets. But we could be looking for buys from this trend line right here. So if price does start to push down into this trend line, then we could be looking to take buys higher up until this level of resistance. Obviously, where the trend line sat currently is where the 200 moving average is sat too, and price is still above. So as long as price stays above this 200 moving average, it's likely that it's going to continue in its uptrend. Obviously, if price did break a little bit through and back down to this support floor, then again we could be looking for buys just below from this level of support. You would need to be careful, as obviously taking buys from these regions, the next kind of barrier for price is this zone here. So you could be looking to exit as soon as this zone here. And obviously if price does break through, then it's likely we'll continue and create new higher highs. But just by looking at the overall trend, since it is in a clear uptrend, it'd be unlikely, well, at least for the moment, for it to change. I think we're going to follow the trend for a little while longer. And obviously we have all the reasons we've just mentioned that are acting almost as a floor for price to bounce up higher from. But anyway, just to add a bit further to this analysis, since we're trading GBPJPY, what we can take a look at is the JPY basket, which gives us an indication of the strength of the Japanese yen in relation to other currency pairs. So obviously, since we're trading GBPJPY, for price to rise higher, the GBP or the pound would need to be stronger than the Japanese yen. And for the GBPJPY to fall in value, we'd need the pound to be weaker than the Japanese yen. So if we have a look at the JPY basket on here, we can have a look to see what the Japanese yen strength is looking like. And pretty much in the inverse fashion to GBPJPY, we're in a very, very clear downtrend, and we have been for quite some time, showing that the JPY strength is just weakening and weakening and weakening. More recently, we have been in a bit of an uptrend. The lows have becoming higher, higher each time, and the highs have become higher each time too. However, until we break past this last most significant high, we're not actually in an uptrend. We're still very much in this downtrend, because this in itself is acting as a ceiling. So it's very likely, from the way price has been playing out, to create another leg lower and for the JPY to weaken. And with the JPY weakening, this would obviously coincide nicely with GBPJPY rising. So as we can see, the highs are becoming lower over time. The lows have been becoming lower over time. We're in a very clear downtrend. It hasn't yet broken the previous highs. So until that is then broken, I think that JPY basket will continue its downtrend like it has for pretty much since the start of March. So if we go back onto the GBPJPY chart, with all of that taken into account, everything is pretty much pointing to a buy. There's nothing pointing to a sell apart from this region right here. We have the ascending trend line, we have the 200 moving average all acting as a floor, we have a support floor a little bit lower than the trend line, and then the next sort of zone we have to take into consideration is this level of resistance. We pretty much have three things pointing to a buy all around the same area. We have the JPY basket looking super weak, which means that the yen's strength is weakening and the pound is obviously going to be stronger. So therefore, it'd be likely to see another push higher from GBPJPY.